You need a godly friend. You need a godly friend. As you move through life with the difficulties, the problems, all those things that are in front of us, every one of us has a major need of a godly friend. You have a need of a godly friend indeed. And a godly friend has three qualities. One, a godly friend knows your creed. They agree with you in talk. Secondly, a godly friend is there in need. When everybody else is against you, they're with you. This is a friend that will stick with you. The third quality of a godly friend is they're there indeed. They will act when everybody else stands back and watches. When everybody else waits to see what's going to happen, a godly friend will act for you. They will speak for you. They will notice your need. And they will definitely act for you. I like this text because this is a text of beauty in the midst of difficulty. God wants you to find beauty in the midst of difficulty, and that comes with a godly friend. And Saul said to Jonathan, his son, and he said to all of his servants, "Kill David." Can anybody miss that? Can anybody miss the message? Kill David. It was the simple logic of a selfish man. The simple logic, kill him because he's in my way. That was Saul's self-centered idea. That was Saul's selfish thought. That was Saul's selfish way of trying to handle things. He wanted David killed because he was the king and he didn't want David to be able to steal it. He didn't want God to be able to give it to David. He said, "Kill that man, get him out of my way." But, and here we see the beauty. This is where the text lays out that you need a friend of God indeed. You need a godly friend indeed. Jonathan delighted in David. My father is trying to kill you. He says, you better look to yourself. You better take care. You better get out of here. Take care of yourself. A true friend will give you good advice, godly advice, right advice in the midst of life. It may hurt him with his family. It may hurt him with others. But he's going to give you the good, godly advice because what you need is a godly friend. And so Jonathan laid it out for David. He said, "I will go out into the field with my father." Now, I want to point out something, that when you live in a palace, every door has ears. When you live in a palace, every chair has ears. When you live in a palace, around every corner, the servant, the cook, the guard, the gatekeeper, everyone has ears. So what he says, I'm going to take my dad and I'm going to go out in the fields where there's nobody there, where there's just me, where there's just my father. I'll go out there and I will speak to him and I will try to talk for you. I will commune with him and I will see what he has to say. There's no privacy in the palace, but a true friend will try to find privacy to make your cause. You know, it's amazing how communication has grown in the past 2 centuries. Communication has grown in the past 200 years. In the 1800s, there was telegraph. You have one wire and one message. Then in the 1900s, there was the telephone. I remember an 8-party line where you get a special ring and then you'd pick it up and then all the other 7 people would pick it up to hear what you say. They'd all listen to you.
That's true.
That's the way it used to be. Yeah. And then there came television. We had 3 big stations. And now we're looking at probably 40, 50, 60, 100 cable channels and all of the derivations that come from that. Here we see how communication has grown. From the telegraph, to the telephone, to the television, but I will tell you the greatest is tell a woman. Because you try to keep a secret, but it gets out. But it goes out that way. And when evil is absolutely everywhere, your godly friend will speak for you, and he'll simply say the truth of God about you. Jonathan said, I will take the chance. I will go to my father, and I will plead your cause. Jonathan spoke of David unto Saul his father. Now I want to point out how hard this had to be. Because first, this was his biological father. Secondly, this was the king of the entire country. Thirdly, this was the head of the army. This was the liege lord of everything that was taking place. This was the number one politician. This was the number one political leader. And Jonathan had to stand up to him and say, Dad, you're wrong. King, you're wrong. General, you're wrong. You see, a truly godly friend will speak your case for God. Amen. And he spoke of God for David. He spoke truth. He spoke seriously. He spoke of the goodness that David had done. And so he stood there in front of Saul, out in the woods, by themselves, alone. And he told Saul, what you're doing is wrong. What you are doing is absolutely not right. How hard it is to tell the truth. And he laid it out. He said, I want to point out this David has fought for you and brought you victory over the Philistines. This David has been true to you, and he has constantly carried your banner to victory. This David has led every one of your soldiers and taught them how to fight and made them successful for you. This David has done all this for you. Don't sin by killing him. Don't sin against him when he's done nothing but good for you. And he lays out and he points out that don't do anything wrong against him. And you know, his words were right. And they touched Saul's ear. And he smoothed things over. And he made things better. But he could not touch the seed of greed that was in the heart of Saul. You can talk to somebody's mind, you can talk to their ear, but you've got to reach the seed that is in the heart. And he could not reach Saul's seed of greed. He could not reach that. And so Saul was not totally converted. He just smoothed it over. You ever had a situation where you smoothed something over?
Yeah.
It sort of got better. It got better for a while and took place, but then it was right back again. And there was a war that took place. And David, being a leader in the army, was sent out. And he marched against the Philistines. And he won, and he had the victory banner. And he brought it to Saul, and he brought it. And the enemy fled. And David came back. And it says, and a spirit of the Lord, sent from the Lord, an evil spirit from the Lord, came and touched the heart of Saul. This is a hard passage for many of us to understand. How can an evil spirit come from the Lord? You have to understand the name that is used here is Yud-He-Vav-He. This is the name of God. I am the God that who was. I am the God who is. I am the God who will be. I made all things. Everything depends on me. I depend upon nothing. I am the God who is, and I am God. So he made everything. God made everything. And if God made everything, then everything is under his permissive will. Notice that God puts us in a position where sometimes we try to hide something from God. Have you ever tried to hide something from God? A thought? Steal something? Take something that's not yours? I want to point out, if God made everything, the thing you're trying to steal is His. The thing you're trying to steal, He's watching. The thing you're trying to do wrong, He's paying attention to. It is foolish to do sin. It is total foolishness to do sin, because what you're trying to do is what God is looking at, what God has created, what God is holding in His heart. So, God took and created all spirits. And some of these spirits rebelled against Him. And they try to lead you and me and others to do wrong. They try to seduce us to sin like they sinned. And so what we see is that God permitted these evil spirits to go and to tempt and to touch other people, to see as a test if you will choose to do right or if you will choose to do wrong. That's what it means when it says God allowed an evil spirit to go and to tempt Saul. He knew that the spirit was going to try to teach him to do wrong, and he let him go, and Saul listened, and Saul did wrong. And Saul tried to kill David again. He was a military man, and I don't know if you've ever seen a military house, but if you go to a military house, there's guns hanging on the wall, there's swords hanging over the door, there's spears standing in the corner, there's bows and arrows in racks on the wall. All the military equipment is there in the house. So Saul is always carrying one of the spears from the wall. And he gets this evil spirit whispering in his ear, "Get him, get him, get him. He's going to steal your kingdom. He's going to steal your crown. He's going to take your family. He's going to take everything. Get him." And so Saul takes the javelin and he throws it at David and he misses. David, being an athlete, being in the army, being a soldier, runs out the door and he's gone. But where do you go when all of society, symbolized by the king, symbolized by the king's servants, symbolized by the king's army, where do you go? The only place you can go is if you've got a godly friend. You go in your need to a godly friend indeed. So David went to Michal. Michal? Michal. That's like Russian. Michal. He went to Michal, his wife. And she said, "David, you better get out of here. My father is going to kill you. He is after you and he's going to get you." And so she takes him to a window, and they've got those big heavy, have you ever seen the big heavy drapes that they hold and they wrap with a rope? And you got a rope across the top and a rope across the top. Then the rope comes down, then the rope wraps around, the rope lays on the floor. And it's big, it's solid, it's bigger than your thumb. And it's a real solid rope. So she takes the rope and she throws it out the window and David climbed down the rope. So David climbs down the rope and he runs. Now Michal is very, very together. She takes a statue and she lays it on the bed. Then she takes a goat's hair pillow and puts it over the head so there's just a little bit of hair sticks out everywhere. Then she takes and she lays a cloth over it. And Saul sent some messengers and they bang on the door and say, "Open up, let us in, we want David." And she said, "David is very, very sick. David has leprosy. You'll catch the leprosy if you come in here. I believe David has Ebola. Don't come in or you'll get Ebola. Remember what it was like during COVID?
Yeah.
Everybody was afraid to go anywhere. Everybody wore masks, wore 2 masks, wore 3 masks. One over here, one over here, one over here. You know, everybody was wearing a mask. Everybody was afraid to go into a room. They would let you go into the room. They wouldn't let you go here. That's what it was like with COVID. Everybody was afraid to go in because of the sickness. And she's there screaming at him, "You better stay out. I think it's leprosy. Stay out." And of course, they didn't want to come in. So they sent one of their messengers. And the messenger went to Saul and said, "I want to tell you that David is very, very sick. He's got Ebola." And Saul says, "You idiot. You absolute stupid idiot. Get in there and kill him. He's not sick. Besides, if you get Ebola, I don't care." That's the way greedy people are. They don't care about you, they only care about them. So he says, "Go in there and kill him." So they go in and they rip the cover off the bed, and there's this stone statue laying there with a goat's hair pillow on the head and this cloth laying over it, and they feel really dumb. Now, Saul is really quite smart about this, because Saul doesn't really explode at his daughter, Michal. He doesn't. He says, "Do you understand David is trying to steal my throne? Do you understand that David, in the long run, wants to take the throne away from your brother? Do you realize all the richness that we have been raised with will be gone? All the good things you've had your entire life from when you were a little girl, all these things will disappear if David gets rid of me as king." And he slowly seduces and talks to her nicely. And he says, "Now, why in the world would you let David escape?" Now, when you're in need, you have a godly friend indeed. They're the only one that can help. A godly friend is the only one that can help. And Michal was that way. Because she knew how her father was. She knew what he would do. She knew what he wanted to do to David, and she knew what he would do to her. So she says, "David threatened to kill me. Why should I have to kill you?" is what David said to me. "So I let him go." That doesn't explain how the statue got there, how the goat's hair pillow got there, how the cover got there, or how she wound up telling the guards that he was really, really sick with a contagious disease. But it had its impact. Because the point of the story is that Jonathan and David were true Christian friends. If you can look around you in this room, if you can look around you in your life, if you can look around you in a congregation and find a real Christian friend, you have the ultimate blessing that God can give. You have the real blessing of what God can and does give, and how he takes care of his people. Because I want to point out something. Years down the road, things change in people's lives. Have you ever noticed that? That down the road, through the years, things change? The only thing that doesn't change is a godly friend. Through second marriages, because David married 2 or 3 other women. Michal was taken away from David and given to another man, much richer than David, who wasn't being chased all over the world. And she wound up turning on David because of what happened there. Politics can change people. Money can change people. Business can change people. The text lays out that the greatest blessing that God can give you, the only thing that doesn't change, is a godly friend. If you have a godly friend, you are blessed by God. That's what God wants to give us. They're there with the proper creed of speech. They're there in your time of need. And they're there with the deed that you need to do when you act. Receive the blessing of God